This is ultimately the 18 principles of the Stoics to become the best version of yourself and live the good life. These principles are taken from Emperor Marcus Aurelius. He wrote them down in his meditations, and I have simplified them and structured them into 18 rules to follow in your daily life so that you can become someone like Marcus Aurelius, or someone like Epictetus, or someone like a person that you would admire. So let's jump into it. Rule number 1 is to be a student of life. Marcus Aurelius studied, and he went to lecturers way into his old age, way into his illness. He was still learning, and many people, when they think that they're so smart, they think they're so wise, especially someone like Emperor Marcus Aurelius. He was the most powerful man at the time. Many people would have adored him, praised him for his greatness, for his philosophical thoughts and his teachings. But people like this that think they're so great, they stop learning, they become arrogant, they become ignorant to what they can learn, and like the quote says, the wise man knows he knows nothing. So Marcus Aurelius studied into his old age, and he was always learning. And the first book of the Meditations, he writes down his lessons that he learned from people. It's a sort of thanks to his family members, to his tutors, and thanks to the gods for what he learned in his life. So he wrote from his grandfather Varus. He learned decency and mild temper. Lessons he learned from his mother, Domitia Lucilla. Lessons he learned from his adoptive father, his real father, from Rusticus. Many great lessons from Rusticus, who was a very famous Stoic, and he wrote letters back and forth to Marcus Aurelius. They had a great connection, and there's many things to learn from his talks with Rusticus. So he writes in the Meditations, book 6:48, whenever you want to cheer yourself, think of the qualities of your fellows, the energy of one, for example, the decency of another, the generosity of a third, some other merit in a fourth. There is nothing so cheering as the stamp of virtues manifest in the character of colleagues, and the greater the collective incidents, the better, so keep them ready to hand. So it's kind of what he did in the first book of the Meditations. People call it virtue modeling. So you model yourself based off of characteristics of people that you admire. So Marcus Aurelius admires his grandfather for decency and mild temper. So he wrote this down in his book, and he probably looked at it quite a lot and thought about these characteristics of his father. Later on is from my mother, piety, generosity, the avoidance of wrongdoing, and even the thought of it, also simplicity of living well clear of the habits of the rich. So he admired his mother for this, and he modeled himself based off of these characteristics from his mom. So his mom taught him not to steer well clear of the habits of the rich. His mother actually grew up very wealthy. She inherited wealth from her mother, who owned a brick and tile company, and that company actually supplied the bricks for the Colosseum. So she was a very wealthy woman, and she taught him to stay clear of the habits of the rich. He grew up very rich, so he probably avoided certain habits that the rich tended to show, maybe overindulgence, greed, and an obnoxious and arrogant attitude, so he avoided these things. So the second rule of Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics, this is very helpful in your life, is to have aim. Marcus Aurelius believed that if we do not have aim in life, then we will wander around aimlessly. It's the point of when you wake up in the morning, you set your sights on what you're going to do throughout that day. You make sure that you don't do any pointless actions. I consider things like over-scrolling on Instagram and TikTok and social media. Over-scrolling, you know, when you get to the point where you're scrolling too much, looking at pointless things that bring you no value, that is a pointless task. There is no aim in that. You're just fulfilling certain needs at that time. You're hitting a certain criteria in that current time. A little hit of dopamine just to get you through that moment. But if you can sit back and not take part in these pointless actions, that will lead to a better life. He says, no action should be undertaken without aim other than in conformity with a principle affirming the art of life. And later on, no wandering. In every impulse give what is right. In every thought stick to what is certain. The Stoics believed in living in accordance with nature, and Marcus Aurelius says when you take actions you must have an aim that is in accordance with nature, follows the virtues, and develops you as a character. You're not doing pointless things. So rule number 2, have aim. Rule number 3, and it's probably the most profound and most obvious rule of the Stoics, is Memento Mori. All must die. Memento Mori is a Latin phrase that means remember death, or remember that you will die, and it is a reoccurring theme throughout Stoic literature, especially in Marcus's personal diary. And I believe the reason for that is Marcus Aurelius grew up during a difficult time, during the Antonine Plague, the Marcomannic Wars. He was plagued with death. Everywhere he looked, from the death of many of his children to the death of friends, family members, and the death of his people. So many people were dying from this plague and the wars, and he became very familiar with death. And he wrote down in his diaries on ways to cope with death. He didn't see death as an evil. So this is probably one of my favorite quotes from the Meditations, and it is this from book 7. Perfection of character is this: to live each day as if it were your last, without frenzy, without apathy, without pretense. So Marcus Aurelius believes in the idea of keeping death at the forefront of your mind. That is something I've done for a very long time, and it has helped increase my presence and gratitude for the life that I have. If you always remember that today could be your last day, then you are grateful for the time that you have, and you don't waste things and be ungrateful. Another quote from the Meditations that perfectly sums up Memento Mori is, "How many with whom I came into this world I have already left." So the point is, everyone dies. He talks in his book about these great people like Hadrian, all these great philosophers and great leaders, and it doesn't matter how great you are, you will always die. Everyone dies. It's just a fact of life. So when you can understand that you will die, then you lose the fear of this death. It's not an evil of life, it's just a fact of life, and it can be scary for some, but when you can let go of this fear, you can truly start to live, you can truly start to be present. So at all times, remember that this instant could be the last, this person could be the last day with you. And also material things, they don't last forever. Your favorite car will break down at some point, or you might lose it, it might get stolen. So don't hold on to these things, just enjoy them while you have them, and be grateful for the fact that you did have them. And as Tony Robbins says, swap your expectations for appreciations. Don't expect to get all these things or to have these things forever, for a lifetime. Just appreciate that you have them for now, and that they have given you something. Even when they leave, this person has left, but they have left you with something, a lesson, or a feeling, or a memory. So one thing, a way to put death at the forefront of your mind and remember Memento Mori, that your time is limited, that you are mortal, is through the use of a Memento Mori life calendar. Every week you fill in one of these boxes. I have one just down there, and you fill in these boxes, and it's just a countdown of your days, really. And people think it is morbid, but from everyone I've spoke to that's used one of these, it's increased their gratitude and their zest for life. So I really do recommend using a calendar like this, or just remembering, maybe through your phone, Memento Mori. You can get this poster in the description, 10% off with code STOIC. So you can use that. It is a very helpful tool, or you can just keep a skull or a reminder of mortality somewhere on your being to remind you that your days are numbered. Rule number 4, seek truth. This is very prevalent in the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. He always talks about how the truth is good. There is no evil in the truth. So if someone criticizes you, if someone says you have done wrong, either it is true, and then you can look towards this thing, learn from it, and do right from that wrong. If you have a bad or negative character trait, maybe you're impatient or rude, and someone points this out, if they are true, then you can look towards it and learn how to be better, so it's a good thing. And if it is false, then it's false, and there's no need to pay attention to lies and falsehoods. So in the Meditations, book 4, he says, to change your ground, if in fact there is someone to correct and guide you away from some notion, But this transference must always spring from a conviction of justice of the common good, and your preferred course must be likewise, not simply for the apparent pleasure or popularity. So the thing with seeking truth is, if you know there is a better way to do it, or you know there is something you should do, then you follow this action and you do this action because that is what is true. You don't do it to be popular, to fit in, to please people. You're not doing this truth. You're not being a truthful person to appear good. You're doing it because that is what is right and that is what is good for your character. Aurelius talks about seeking criticism. He talks about getting criticism, and he sees it as a good thing. If someone is offering you criticism, then you can almost see it as someone is offering you advice. There's often truth to people's criticism, and you can use this to grow as a character. So to seek the truth is good. There's no wrong in the truth. We often tell lies to ourselves to make ourselves feel better. For example, if we know we need to get some work done, maybe homework, or for ourselves, for our own progress, we know we need to get this work done. Maybe we are tired or we don't feel like doing it. We come up with a lie to tell ourselves, like, oh, actually it's not that important. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. That's the most common one. I'll do it tomorrow. We tell ourselves this lie to make ourselves feel better, and then we end up not doing this thing that is best for us. So by lying to ourselves, we are stopping ourselves from being the best version of ourselves. So to seek the truth is to seek what is good and to seek growth, in a way, personal growth of our character. Rule number 5, amor fati. Amor fati is a Latin phrase that translates to the love of one's fate. The Stoics are very well known for this phrase, amor fati, and the idea is something happens in your life and you say you love it, it comes your way, and you say, amor fati, I love that this has come to me. Something good, something bad. Bad things happen, you say, I love that this has happened to me. Maybe I can grow from this, maybe I can learn something from this. And the reason is, the Stoics believed in the world is kind of written for us. There is our destiny, our fate is written, maybe by God, by the universe. Whatever you believe in, something or someone has written our fate, and it happens as it does. So you can either cry and moan that these things happen, or you could say thank you. You can say to God, you can thank God that this thing has happened. You can thank the universe that these lessons have come your way, because they will happen regardless. So you can either, as I say, you can dance in the rain or sulk in the rain. It will rain regardless. You can't control these things, but you control how you react to these things. And I know many people who don't believe in fate, that the universe is written or there's a God. Many people don't believe in these things. But the way I see it is, the universe will happen as it does. The planet turns as it does, it orbits around the sun as it does. Disasters happen, people outside behave the way they do, and you cannot change this. So that is fate happening, and what you can change is your opinion towards these things. So that's rule number 5, amor fati. Rule number 6, neither slave nor tyrant. In the Meditations, book 4, love the art which you have learnt and take comfort in it. Go through the remainder of your life in sincere commitment of all your being to the gods, and never making yourself a tyrant or a slave to any man. So the point is that people think that if you become a victim to life and you become weak and crushed under life, then that is the worst thing that can happen. And the goal is to rise above, as high as possible, above this thing of being a slave, as Aurelius says. But I see it as a spectrum. You either become the slave, or right at the top end, you become the tyrant. You become the person that's punishing the people at the bottom. You become, you get delusions of grandeur. Your ego takes over, and you become victim to these vices. And you start to direct anger at people. You start to being a bad character. So you can either be a victim or you can be a villain. But what you want is to actually find the balance in between. You want that grounded character. You want to be like the rocks that the waves crash over. You stand unmoved as the chaos is going on around you. So don't become the slave or the tyrant. And as Aurelius says, sober up. So stay in control. Don't allow these things to pull you one way. Don't allow being the victim to pull you to that end of the spectrum. Don't allow your ego to drag you to that end of the spectrum. Sober up, stay in control, stay true to your character. Rule number 7, less is more. Marcus Aurelius writes in the Meditations, if you want to be happy, says Democritus, do little. May it not be better to do what is necessary, what the reason of the natural social being demands, and the way reason demands it done. This brings the happiness both of right action and of little action. Most of what we say and do is unnecessary. Remove the superfluity, and you will have more time and less bother. So in every case, one should prompt oneself, is this or is this not something necessary? The removal of the unnecessary should not only apply to actions but to thoughts also. Then no redundant action too shall follow. So less is more, as Bruce Lee says, hack away the unessential. The closer to the source, the less wastage there is. And this rule is so important in your life today, especially with social media, the news, the exposure we have to so much noise. Sometimes we have to remember that less is more. You don't need to focus on all these accounts, all these things, all this news around the world, all these things that are happening. Imagine a caveman back in the day. The only troubles he has is within his cave or within the borders of his cave. Maybe a few dangers around. Maybe he has to focus on looking after himself, looking after his family. But now we see troubles from around the world. We see the drama and gossip of other people, and this all just lives in our head. There's so much going on. And I remember I seen a quote somewhere where someone said, if you are not journaling because you don't know what to write down, then that is precisely why you need to start writing stuff down, because your mind is so full of noise that you can't even think, what do I need to get out? There's just too much going on. So begin at once to do less. Get rid of the unessential. You don't need to scroll for hours on Instagram. I'm not saying delete your Instagram, although I highly recommend it, but just cut your time out, stop doing pointless acts, and you'll realize how peaceful life is without all this noise. Rule number 8, do not be distracted. As Marcus Aurelius says, look within, do not allow the special quality or worth of anything to pass you by. Marcus Aurelius always talked about keeping true to your character, not looking this way or that way, at the fancies of the high life. He says, be careful not to be Caesarified and walking around your palace in purple, imagining that you're great. Don't be distracted by these things. Oftentimes we like it when we look on social media and we see someone with the fancy car, the nice house, the luxury life. We can be drawn to it, and it can ruin our present moment. This can make us feel bad because we don't have these things, and it can distract us from what is truly important. And the thing is, we know that these things don't bring happiness. Pretty much everyone knows that getting that car won't make you a happy person. It won't make you a fulfilled person. It won't improve your character. Yet we still chase it because we get distracted. So we have to remember, do not get distracted. Rule number 8. Rule number 9, stay true to you. Whatever anyone does or says, I must be a good man. It is as if an emerald or gold or purple were always saying, whatever anyone does or says, I must be an emerald and keep my own colour. In life, we look around and we see other people, we start comparing ourselves to other people, we hear things on social media, we hear opinions of people that are saying you need to be like this or be like this. The truth is you need to stay true to you. Marcus Aurelius wrote that anything beautiful has its beauty of itself. Like someone says, the diamond does not lose its shine when someone says that the diamond is dull. It stays shiny. It doesn't matter what someone says. The criticism does not change the fact. And the gold is gold. The emerald is emerald. No matter what anyone says, these things are true. And oftentimes we give into this pressure because we think that's what we need. We need to be like this person, but it only causes inner turmoil because we're lying to ourselves. We're not being our true self. And I believe that greatness comes about when you start to accept your true self. You start to show that because you're no longer pretending. Your natural actions that you do are 100% you. They're 100% authentic, and that is great power. So rule number 9, stay true to you. Rule number 10, ignore the noise. This rule is so important today. It's more important than it's ever been in the history of the world. It's more important than when Marcus Aurelius wrote it. So if it was important to him, it's certainly important to you. He says, "What ease of mind you gain from not looking at what your neighbour has said or done or thought, but only at what your own actions, to make them just, reverential, imbued with good." Ignore the noise. I keep talking about social media, but there is so much noise, so many opinions on social media, in the news, from people in the streets, from friends, from family, and oftentimes people mean well, but it is just noise. You don't need to pay attention to all these things. You need to pay attention to your life, what is going on in the present moment. I think when you can start blocking out the noise, it stops swaying your opinions on things that really don't matter. I see people get caught up in dramas on social media and gossip on social media, and a week later it's gone. But they spent the whole week and that was taking up their mind, and it leads to nothing. It doesn't lead to you developing your character. It doesn't lead to you helping people around you. It doesn't lead to you being a better person, because you're focusing on a fleeting gossip that's only there to, you're only focusing on a fleeting gossip that is here today and gone tomorrow, and you're just left with a bit of anxiety, a bit of worry, a bit of tension from focusing on this drama. So rule number 11, Marcus Aurelius says, to be like the wrestler, not the dancer. And he writes, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing, in that it stands ready for what comes and is not thrown by the unforeseen." So Marcus Aurelius talks that you need to develop these philosophical doctrines, these tools that you develop through life, this strength of character to prepare you for life. Like he says, to be like the wrestler, because life can be harsh and it can hit you. It can be unpredictable, but if you stand ready like a wrestler, a wrestler facing his opponent, her opponent, and you have to be ready for anything, because if you get caught off guard, you lose the fight. And that is like life. If you have your philosophical practices, your wisdom, your teachings, your strength of character ready to take on the fight of life, then you will not get thrown this way or that way. You'll stand unmoved like the rock. Rule number 12, do good for the sake of good. There's a quote in the Meditations where he says, "You have done good and this person has received good. Why then do you wait for something else in return?" You've done a good act, you've helped someone out. Is that not enough? You've been a good person. Is that not enough for you to know that you've done the right thing, that you've been a good person? Why do you have to wait for someone to say thank you, or for someone to give you a pat on the back? Or even some people get down, they get miserable because there was no return favour. You lend someone something and oftentimes people expect something in return. The act of doing good should be enough. And I say this because I think this is what makes someone a good person, and this is why you should try follow this. If you can understand this, that being good for the sake of good is enough, then people will start to see that. People will start to see your character. And maybe that is a return in itself. So don't expect that people will start to see this. Just understand that you've done good and that is enough. Rule number 13 is be present. People live in the past. They think of mistakes of the past, or they live in the future, dreams and desires of the future. But none of these things are real. The only thing that exists is the present, and the only thing you can control is the present. So do not live in mistakes of the past. That will only cause sadness, depression, regrets, remorse, rumination. These things are not good, because you can't change what has happened. And do not live in the future, because this will only cause anxieties of worries in the future, things that could happen. As Marcus Aurelius says in Book 8, "Look, make yourself a gift of the present time. Those who are more inclined to pursue a fame hereafter fail to reckon that the next generation will have people just like those they dislike now, and they too will die. What, anyway, is it to you, if this is the echo in the future voices, and this the judgment they make of you?" Make yourself a gift of the present time. Marcus Aurelius says that the present moment is a gift. So right now, sit and be present. Just look around, take a pause. I think that's the best way to say it, is just take a pause. If you're sat on a bus, take a pause, look around you. There's really not that much going on. All this chaos in the world is not going on right now around you. You're just sat on a bus looking around. Enjoy the view. Enjoy that there's quite a few people having odd conversations on the bus. The present is quite interesting and it's quite a peaceful place sometimes. So be present. So rule number 14, be realistic. Epictetus has a famous line where he says, "When you go about an act, think about what that act entails. So he says, when you go out to the baths, remember that there will be rude people out there. There will be people that splash you. So do not be disturbed by these things. Go about this act and aim. Your only aim is to keep your character true, to not be disturbed by these things. So you can enjoy the act, and then at the end of the day, you can say, I was not disturbed by these things. I did not ruin my character because of these things. So when you get on your daily commute, you're on the bus, maybe the bus driver's rude, you know this could happen. Maybe there's someone blasting music at the back of the bus, you know this will happen. So expect these things and do not be surprised or disturbed by these things. Just try to keep your character true. And Marcus Aurelius says, wanting the bad man to not do wrong is like wanting the fig tree not to produce rennets in its figs, babies not to cry, horses not to neigh, or any other inevitable fact of nature. What else can he do with a state of mind like his? So if you are really keen, cure his state. So he's just saying, not expect the bad man to do bad is ridiculous. And if you go out into the world, 8 billion people, there will be bad people, there will be annoying people and rude people that will do these bad things. So do not be surprised or be upset that these things happen, because they will happen. I was speaking to Master Shi Hengyi recently about this. He said, if you look at the person closest to you, they're going to surprise you every so often. You know them, you've known them your whole life, yet they still surprise you from their actions. They sometimes let you down. So then when you go out into the world to people, random strangers, and you have expectations for them to meet, of course they're going to not stand up to these expectations. Of course they're going to surprise you and let you down. This is just life, so expect these things to happen, and you will not be disturbed by these things. So expect that you will get stuck in traffic, because it happens every day. To not expect this and to get annoyed by this is silly. Rule number 15 is to develop life principles. Marcus Aurelius says it is like the surgeon. You have your scalpel, you have your forceps, you have your knowledge on surgery. You have all this knowledge, you have all these tools to perform to the best of your ability. So in life, you have your principles, you have your philosophical understanding, so that when you're confronted with challenges and difficulties and events, situations, you have these tools to help guide you through this life. So if you are wondering, what principles do I have? Look towards first the cardinal virtues: justice, temperance, wisdom, and courage. This can be your foundation of your principles for your life. You can start developing your principles of who you want to be and how you want to be. And another, like we said at the start of the video, is model virtue. Model yourself off of great people, and these can become your life principles to guide you to become a better person. So when you don't know what to do, when you're lost, when you have no direction, you can look towards these principles to guide you to start taking the right steps and push you through the day, the week, the year, and guide you in the right way. Rule number 16 is to journal. This book right here, the most famous Stoic literature, one of the most famous philosophical books to ever exist. Millions of copies, millions of people have read this book, and it's changed their life. This is a journal, it's a personal journal. Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote this for himself. It wasn't supposed to be published, but after his death, someone luckily published it, and now we have the meditations. But journaling is you're getting your thoughts out onto paper so that you can understand them. You're cleaning your mind of all these thoughts, all this noise going on. And I'll say one thing about journaling. You don't understand how great you are. You don't understand how good you are at writing. You don't understand how poetic, how artistic, how wise you are until you start writing down your thoughts. You have your own unique perspective because only you have lived your life. You've lived a unique life, and you sit with these thoughts 24/7 for your whole life, and you don't share them because you don't understand how powerful they are. But once you start writing them down, after a while, you just write down whatever comes to mind, and you'll start to see how powerful you are, how wise you are. And you don't have to share that with anyone, but it's quite a powerful tool, and it helps it helps clean your mind, helps you be more relaxed, more calm, because there's less noise going on. You've got them down. And sometimes you have all these problems going around, then when you write them down, you can see the problem and you can attend to them. So rule number 17, work together. The Stoics believed that obviously the world happens as it is. We take part in that world. We have our own place in that world. But also humans are made to work together like cogs in a machine. We work well together. It's human nature to work together. We have been gifted wisdom and temperance, courage and justice. We've been gifted this knowledge that when we work together, we work better. So it is only human nature to follow these gifts that we have been given, whether God has given us these gifts. There's a story of Zeus, who was Prometheus. There's a story of Prometheus and his brother where they are creating humans, giving them all these skills, giving all the animals the skills, but then Zeus himself gives humans these special qualities of wisdom and courage, these special qualities that help us to work together. So if you believe in that or you don't believe in that, the point is we have been given these gifts and it is our nature to use these gifts. As Marcus Aurelius says, eyes see, feet walk, mouths talk, and humans do good. Humans work together because that is human nature. That's when we do best, when we work together. And as Marcus Aurelius has wrote many times in Meditations, lessons he has learnt from Rusticus and his father, his adoptive father, his mother. He's learning from these people. He is collaborating with these people, and he grew up with great tutors that taught him many of these lessons that he worked with. So humans work together. The last rule, rule number 18, is you are capable. I think that's the best rule to finish on, because most people will take away from this video, if I didn't include that rule, they'll go, yeah, well, this is meant for special people. This is meant for people that are smarter or wiser than me. But the truth is, we are all capable. We are all capable of being our best self. The Stoics believed in the concept of eudaimonia, which is human flourishing. It is when we be our best self. That is achieved when we live in accordance with nature and follow the virtues. So Epictetus, who was a slave, and Marcus Aurelius, who was the emperor of Rome, the most powerful man, they believed in the same concept of eudaimonia. They believed that is the greatest thing to try achieve. And that is achievable by all. That's the most powerful thing. That is the greatest thing, is that the ultimate goal of life is achievable by everyone. And you are capable of achieving that. And I think you understand that if you just stick to following these rules, you'll start to see how capable you are when you start to grow. Don't allow people to tell you you can't do these things, or people to put you down because of your circumstances, the way you look, your background, the way you behave. And some people will put you down, but just understand that you are capable of doing all these things. You're capable of achieving, as the Stoics said, eudaimonia, this human flourishing. You're capable of that. Marcus Aurelius says that's the greatest achievement of humans, is this eudaimonia. So everyone is capable of that. It doesn't matter who you are. And I sometimes believe people that have been born into wealth and greatness, in a way, as people call it, they develop this ego, and that holds them back from human flourishing. It helps them back from being a good character because it's in the way. As it is said that moral blindness is worse than physical blindness because you don't even see that you're doing wrong. So I just want to say that you are capable, and you are capable of achieving greatness, as the Stoics said. And I don't mean greatness in a monetary value or this success. I just mean you can be a great character, you can be a great role model. I hope these 18 rules helped you, and I want you to try implement them into your life, because it is very well hearing these rules and saying, oh, that's good advice, but only 1% of viewers will actually implement them into their life, and that's where you get the real benefits from these rules. So start today, implement these rules into your life, and thank you for watching. I hope these rules help you. If you want to support what I'm doing, then please consider becoming a YouTube member or subscribing, or heading over to my Instagram at TheEverydayStoic, where you can join in the Stoic discussion. 415,000 like-minded Stoics that are sharing Stoic wisdom and ideas and perspective, which I think is brilliant. And if you'd like to support me so I can make more projects like this, then consider getting the Memento Mori life calendar. It helps me and it will help you. And in any case, I hope you have a great day and take these rules into your life to develop your character. Thank you for watching.